So supposedly, this match right here is one of the very best matches of professional StarCraft 2 of all time. And of course, even though I tried watching as much DreamHack last week as I could live, I actually did not watch this match myself right here. So instead, I'm going to be casting this game for you today, and we're going to figure out what the fuss is all about together. So spawning in the bottom right corner of Abyssal Reef LE, playing with the red Zerg pieces, we have none other than Bly. And his opponent spawning in the cross position and playing in blue, we have none other than the Mexican Terran, known by the nickname of SpeCIaL. And I actually just looked it up. He goes by the nickname of Major, SpeCIaL, Windy, Terran, Princess, Britney, Kitty, Memory, CuteAngel, NoNge, Shofu, Light, and a whole lot of other ones as well. But it's Major. I think that most of you will be knowing him under Major. He's been playing StarCraft 2 since the very beginning of the game. And of course, he's been one of the most successful non-Korean Terran players over the course of the last 7 or so years. But lately, he's been going by the nickname of, well, I was almost going to say Major right there, but he's going on by the nickname of SpeCIaL. Now, Bly is going to open up with a hatchery first into a gas geyser, and of course, I mean, I covered a couple of games of Bly before in the past. He is very well known for his hyper-aggressive Zerg strategy. Now, the only thing I do know about this game is that the match is rather long. I mean, I looked at the replay time before loading it up. It's really the only spoiler that I get before watching any of these games, right? And I mean, this is a long game. I wonder what Bly has got in store for us here today, because he is most definitely capable of playing like a macro-oriented style, but he is usually playing extremely hyper-aggressive, and most of the games that I really see him play, he tries to close it out as early as he possibly can. Now, of course, Bly, the Ukrainian Zerg right here, he's currently playing for Team Expert, and when it comes to tournament winnings alone, he has earned roughly $80,000 in prize money. Now, SpeCIaL, like I mentioned, the Mexican Terran player, he's actually not even afraid to go for that CC on the low ground right here. That's so funny. Even though he knows he's up against Bly, he still apparently feels more than comfortable by just simply going for that SCV scout early, and he figured out indeed that there is a hatchery down on the low ground already. But of course, SpeCIaL in this game, and I think I'm just going to go with SpeCIaL right here instead of Major. I mean, it's kind of confusing the amount of nicknames that the guy has, but he has earned roughly $120,000 in prize money so far. Now, indeed, Bly is looking to take a really quick third base right here. That Reaper, however, is coming in, and with a little bit of blocking right there with that SCV, eventually it would at the very least deny that third from going up, and with that bunker going down as well, I think that SpeCIaL will be pretty happy with the outcome of this early game shenanigans so far. Nice little bit of micro right there, turning that drone in the nick of time right there into a spore crawler as well. And we simply just see more and more queens going down. He did pull 2 drones out of the gas geyser as well, so Bly is not getting nearly as much gas income as you might normally get. But he also managed to sneak a couple of Zerglings across the map, and they managed to kill that SCV just a second or so before it finished up that command center. And that's actually rather annoying right here for the Terran player. Not only would it force the Reaper to go back home right now, it also will actually supply block him if he's not careful. I mean, Terran players do rely on that natural finishing up and, you know, of course, that supply unlocking from the command center. Now, of course, lo and behold, a couple of Hellions will come out and they will be able to shut down this little bit of Zergling harass, and the scouting SCV from earlier will be able to finish up the command center with relative ease. Reaper now also made his way home. Overlord went in and he figured out exactly what is going on. So indeed, we do see that tech lab follow up right here on that starport. So that means that the Terran player is looking to go either Banshees or potentially even Ravens. But judging indeed by that cloaking upgrade, it is going to be a Banshee opener right here by SpeCIaL. And of course, with the amount of Hellions that he's got, he can most definitely start playing rather aggressive here as well, and try and push the Zerg at different kinds of angles. Now, we already do see a whole lot of roaches actually on the production tab here. Bly putting those drones back into the gas geyser. He's actually going up to, I think, 8 right here in total. Yeah, and actually, no, it's 7 in total, and a whole lot of Zerglings to follow up as well. So I wonder, actually, whether or not Bly is planning to get really aggressive. Of course, this is going to be tricky. And while he does get one free Hellion right there that's now currently floating to the surface, there is going to be, you know, quite a bit of defense out right very soon with that single Banshee. I mean, Banshees will be able to shut this down eventually, and the question is, even though Bly is currently moving across the map, is he going to be capable of dealing enough damage with the aggression that he's currently using to try and contain the Terran player? A couple of Zerglings trying to run to their deaths are going to immediately go after that mineral line. I like that move a lot, and while indeed Bly knows that he's going to be on a timer as well, so he's been making drones here for a while, he's going to try and kill as many workers as he possibly can here without really losing all too many roaches right from the get-go just yet. So far, though, Brilliant micro here by the Terran player, really not losing a whole lot whatsoever. Only 2 SCVs going down. Couple more are indeed being target fired, and it will indeed, you know, cause beautiful control right there, honestly, by SpeCIaL. I mean, that was pretty. Oh my god, he actually only lost 4 SCVs to all of that. That's incredible. Impeccable micro there by Major. Really, like, not allowing his opponent to get a huge upper hand. And while Bly, of course, was making drones there for a long time, and he also, you know, prevented his opponent from getting aggressive so far, these Banshees are still alive. A couple of Hellions ended up falling, but SpeCIaL is going to be able to continue the aggression if he so decides to choose. Of course, though, a lot of workers were created, so Bly is going to be in a pretty decent position. But that control right there by Major was absolutely spot on, and all that practice he's been doing in Korea definitely is paying off. And the nice thing, of course, about having 2 Banshees is that they will be able to one-shot workers if they fire a volley with the both of them. A couple of Hellions right here on the right-hand side of the map as well. They're going to be shooed away by one Hero Roach, and the Hero Roach actually does prevent them from really getting any kind of damage done here for the time being. And more units actually in the form of drones right now going down right now as well for Bly, while the Terran player is taking a 3rd base here as well. So while Bly, you know, open up a little aggressive. And actually, there's a bunch of roaches here. He's got to be careful with these Hellions. Hellions going where are you guys going? All right, I was going to say, they should be going straight for the mineral line right here. Couple of drones indeed do end up falling. But all things considered, both players taking minimal losses here in the early part of the game. And I'm actually genuinely impressed right there, though, with the defense of SpeCIaL so far. I mean, I thought he was going to do... he was going to take a lot more damage. And actually, interestingly enough, SpeCIaL is going to follow this up with Mech play, adding on more and more factories. 3 Banshees out right now is what they're going to try and do a bunch more damage to these roaches. A few of them do end up falling, but both players actually even in the amount of workers at this point in the game, which is, of course, an advantage right here for the Terran, as they got this beautiful unit called the Mule that will continue mining here and give the Terran the income upper hand. Now this is quite interesting. For the longest time, Terrans were only playing bio-based army, and what I mean with that is like a Marine Marauder Medevac Widowmine kind of based composition. But the cool thing is that actually in this game, SpeCIaL is opening up with Mech, and Mech is, it's one of those things that has become a lot more popular over the course of the last couple of weeks in particular. For those of you that have watched the GSL finals, you will know that, of course, we had a Gumiho versus Su Grand Finals. And Gumiho actually was one of the few players in StarCraft 2 over the last few months that has been playing Mech. And spoiler alert, he ended up winning the GSL Code S, playing Mech primarily against Su. Now, Su is probably the best Terran player, or probably the best Zerg player at this point in time, although there are a couple of very high-level players out right now. He doesn't really lose against Bio-Terran whatsoever, but the mech style that he was playing was very interesting, as it was very, very Thor-heavy. We'll see whether or not something along those lines will be happening right here for SpeCIaL as well. Now, both players still doing a little bit of damage to each other. I wonder if this, yeah, at this point, of course, Bly does know about the fact that there is going to be a chance for Mech at the very least. And while you will not, you know for 100% certain, upon seeing these Cyclones as well as the Hellbats and then that Siege Tank as well, you will be 100% confirmed of the fact right here that Terran is going for a mech-based composition. And I wonder exactly what the follow-up for him is going to be. Now, both players really trying to skirmish out as much damage here as they possibly can. Both of them actually taking pretty equal amounts of losses so far. Really taking an eye for an eye, I guess, so far. And I mean, while those transfuses are on point and the Banshees will be forged back here for a little while longer, so will the Roaches on the other side of the map. And both players actually, once again, pretty much even when it comes to the total amount of workers. Now, I love this actually. Bly going for that quick 4th base, and he's going to be able to start mining from this shortly, but he's already got 9 of those swarm hosts queued up, and this is one of the few times where you really do see swarm host play from a Zerg player. Interestingly enough, against Gumiho it did not work whatsoever, because the cool thing is that Gumiho was really abusing like Thors as well as Medevacs, and I wonder if we're going to see that right here from SpeCIaL as well. I mean, he's getting that reactor on the starport, and he's producing 2 Thors at once. Now, Thors, of course, recently got a slight little buff, getting them, or, you know, giving them a little bit more armor and a bit more sustain with that as well. And while these Hellions are going to be a bit of a pain, the first couple of Locusts are going to be able to shoot them away here as well. Now, of course, Terran Mech, right? Here's the thing about Terran Mech. It's extremely potent. It's extremely good once it maxes out, in particular with like a Raven Thor, like Widow, you know, like basically like a high-tech kind of composition. That's when it's really strong, and in particular once it maxes out. Now, this is one of the new school kind of things where Terran starts harassing not just with Hellions and Hellbats, but also with, you know, Banshees and then a lot more Thor harass as well. So we actually do see 2 Medivacs right now moving across the map too. Now, of course, the Zerg is really trying to keep this Terran player contained right now. And with the help of these locusts, it can deal an awful lot of damage. And I think this is may very well triggered, you know, Terran at the very least to move back for a little while longer. Because you can see the amount of damage here that these locusts do in a short amount of time is absolutely impeccable. Now, the Banshees, of course, trying to be a nuisance here. They will be able to shut down at least a couple of these units here. At the same time, though, the Thors were trying to find if there was a base right here on the right-hand side of the map. But it turns out that that is not the case. And more harass is going down right now for the Zerg player. And this is really where the game becomes a lot more interesting. Zerg is going to try, and that's at least what I'm assuming, Zerg is going to try and keep this Terran player's army small. And actually, beautiful yanks right there, using those Vipers with that quick hive tech here already to really try and deal as much damage as possible. Nice little drop-off once again, though, but I wonder, with these Medivacs falling, is this going to be enough? Oh my god, these... Whoa, 2 super low Medivacs there. Wow, alright. So Zerg is going to probably try and keep this... Oh man, you got to be careful right here, Special. That's 1. That's 2. Alright, well, I guess they just barely did not manage to get to safety. Zerg is gonna try and keep this Terran player contained, using, you know, all of the different kinds of tools that Zerg has got at their disposal. For example, Nidus Worms, we can see Overload drops, we can see a lot of this kind of play here as well with the Yanks. Beautiful moves right there actually by Bly. He's already maxed out at this point in the game, but he's really trying to keep this Terran army as small as he possibly can while also preventing the economy. The one thing to keep in mind though, at this point in the game, right, while Bly does have a very menacing force, it's all very supply heavy. I mean, we get Swarm Hosts right here as well as Roaches, as well as a whole lot of these Hydras, and they're not the most, like, supply efficient kind of army, right? And since we're maxed, of course, at 200, this is gonna be a bit of a problem. Now, Special, in the meantime, while he's currently only at 150 supply, he's been doing a great job at preventing the Zerg from really dealing a whole lot of damage. And while a bunch of workers have gone down, he's been doing a pretty decent job right here at preventing this Zerg from really pushing up this ramp. Now, once again, though, great moves here by the Zerg player, really trying to contain the positioning right here of the Terran. But the thing is, there's so many siege tanks out at this point, I'm wondering whether or not he even wants to fight in this engagement. It looks like he does. He's gonna try and push in with as many of these Roaches, Hydras, as well as Vipers as he can. And I almost feel like this is more or less like a sacrificial army because he wants to remax on something else. And there, indeed, we do see a massive amount of Hydras go down, which is an interesting choice. And I think that he's planning to maybe even switch into Brute Lords. I mean, we did see that Spire go down just now. Hive, of course, already done. Roaches are just not going to cut it at this point in the game anymore. So, of course, he's going to have to get rid of them one way or another. And he's doing so by taking a whole lot of workers with him as well. And while the Swarm House Locusts are still trying to do whatever they can, and a couple of these units are indeed burrowed right now in the mineral lines as well. 15 SCVs ended up falling right there in total, making the grand total so far up to 37 SCVs lost. And indeed, we do see that Greater Spire go down, as well as that, you know, more and more Viper tech, I suppose. And here's the thing, right? Terran, however, even though, like, this is a bit of a nuisance, right? This is a little annoying. Terran is mostly reliant right now on their gas income. There's not a lot of workers out, but he doesn't need a whole lot either. There's gonna be so many mules available, and really, like, Mech is usually limited by the amount of gas it can gather. I don't think that Major is gonna be all too worried right now about the amount of, you know, SCVs that he's got at this point in time. I mean, he can just simply produce 4 at a time, and he's gonna be just fine. I'm really impressed with his defenses so far, because he could have easily gone down right there, right? A lesser Terran player could have easily been overthrown right there. And while he is still under a bit of pressure, you know, the setup right here with that planetary fortress as well as that siege tank, I don't think it's gonna really do a whole lot. Now, one of the things that makes Terran Mech very menacing, and actually we get one hero Locust here, picking up so many additional kills. One of the things that makes Terran Mech incredibly valuable is indeed that starport play. Be it, for example, with a lot that actually hold that thought, because, you know, the majority right here of the Terran army is actually moving right now on the right-hand side. But be it with, you know, either a lot of Vikings or even battlecruisers, most of the time, the real menacing force happens once we see a lot of Ravens come out. And the micro between Ravens and Vipers becomes pretty much the most crucial part here of the Zerg versus Terran meta when it comes to Mech versus Zerg. Now, of course, we do see a lot of... Oh, man, this is a risky move from the Zerg, though. He's gonna try and push into all of these siege tanks. So while Blinding Clouds will stop them here for a bit. Yeah, I was gonna say, these Hydras are gonna be very, very flimsy. Now, a couple of Brute Lords are currently out as well. Hydra's trying to do whatever damage they can. Beautiful snipes here, actually, using these Vikings to their utmost precision. But the thing is, of course, these Brute Lords will absolutely shut down these siege tanks, going straight after them as well. And this is gonna be a bit of a funny engagement here, because while Zerg doesn't want to move all too far forward here either, with all of those Brute Lords and with these Hydras, because he knows that he's gonna lose them, he's gonna have to be careful that he doesn't lose the Brute Lords to these couple of Vikings for relatively nothing. Great control right there by Bly, still trying to pressure his opponent as much as he can, but I can't help but wonder what this game is gonna look like once the Terran player gets a bit more army. Now, so far though, looking really solid, trying to just simply contain that Terran army. And actually, I mean, like I said, Terran Mech in particular becomes scary once it maxes out. So far, he has not gotten the max out of, at the very least, that is special, right? So far, he really has not been able to max out just yet. And at this point, there's Brute Lords out. While the Swarm Hosts are once again going to town right here on this 4th base location, another command center has been taken, and while special is still actually not quite mining here from the gases, which is quite surprising. So many workers end up falling here, though. Look at that. Once again, these Swarmers really paying for this extremely nicely. While, you know, Terran player is gonna be under a bit of pressure, I don't think it's gonna crumble just yet. I mean, judging by the amount of stuff that Zerg has here, and of course we got that nice setup right here with the Brute Lords, they're also extremely slow, and that means that with some nice Viking interception, I think that every single last one of these is indeed gonna end up falling. And while the Vikings will be under some pressure here as well, and some of them will even be yanked backwards right here by those Vipers. The Hydras will be able to pick up a couple of them. This is still not over just yet. Bly, currently 152 supplies, still pressuring his opponent. They're really like killing so many SUVs. I mean, if you take one thing away from this video so far, right, I want it to be the fact that Terran Mech, once it maxes out, is extremely good. And secondly, if you're up against Terran Mech and you're a Zerg, build a bunch of Swarm Hosts, because really, like, the only reason right here why Bly is still in this game is because of those handful of Swarm Hosts dealing so much damage. I'm quite surprised actually that Special is not just simply dealing with this, because this is dealing way more than he assumes. The thing is, he's probably thinking that these Swarm Hosts are actually just simply hanging out on the left-hand side of the map, and they just keep poking back in and out. He can't really quite see that they are burrowed right over here, right outside of his base, right? So I think he would have been able to clean those up much sooner if he wasn't actually just simply caught with his pants down every single time right there. Regardless, though, so far, beautiful moves here by Bly, really trying to keep that Terran economy low. And at this point, I mean, while the first, like, 30 workers really didn't matter, I mean, at this point, we're up to 69 SCVs that were killed in total right here for the Terran player. Bly still adding on a lot more of these air units. I would love to see like a switch into Ravens shortly. The thing about Ravens is that they take forever to max out on, right? But the strong part is, at the very least, that's what Gumiho showcased, right? And he would probably be the premier Terran mech player right now in the world. The thing is that Terran mech, like, it almost looks unbeatable once you max out on enough Ravens. I mean, Ravens are incredibly good. Of course, the only issue is that Ravens cost you a ton of gas, and they also take forever to build. So if you want to try and actually max out on Ravens, it's gonna take, like, I don't know, 20 minutes. So if you plan on doing so, you best well start early. Now, the Queens, however, are also moving forward. Bly is fully aware of this situation as well, and he knows that his opponent may very well be switching into it. Really using these Vipers brilliantly, though. Really trying to just simply contain this Terran player as much as he can. Trying to deny that economy. And while the 5th base has been secured right now, and Terran is moving here on the left-hand side of the map as well, Zerg is making a big move up to that 4th, or rather 5th base location here of the Terran player. Really like zoning with these Vipers as well, right? Using the parasitic bombs right there. Even getting a couple of Corruptors to try and make this a bit easier. And I wonder, is there going to be enough Zerg to deal with this force right now? No blinding cloud going down on this planetary fortress just yet. Really like preserving that energy. And while Terran is still killing bases here left and right as well, I think that he's got enough defense here to deal with the Zerg army here for the time being. And Zerg decides to back off. Now, beautiful move here by SpeCIaL. Really like recognizing the situation, realizing that he's got enough defense and reading properly into it. And while I did end up killing one hatchery that was building right here, I think that is not quite going to be enough here to kill another base. But that was a really high level move, right? I mean, most of the Terran players right there would clump all of their units up together to try and just barely hold on right there. But he read that and he realized, he was like, nope, I know I've got enough stuff. The planetary will hold, and I'm going to be capable of dealing with this just fine. Once again, though, we see more and more Thors in production. Broodlords now also coming out in bigger and bigger numbers, and Bly is doing a great job at keeping his opponent, like, contained. The thing is, though, that Terran has now got 5 bases. Terran is building up that economy slowly but surely, right? And while Terran doesn't have, like, a very powerful army just yet, and he's been losing a lot, by no stretch of the imagination is SpeCIaL out of this game just yet. 125 supply, once again, may be very deceiving, because the thing is, how exactly is Zerg gonna try and clean this up? And Bly recognizes it as well. He's put a bunch of units right here on the right-hand side of the map, and he's just simply producing more and more workers once again, bringing the grand total up to about 80, with 2 more coming out. And he's actually adding on a ton of Vipers, really like getting as much gas income as he possibly can at this point in the game as well, and securing bases left and right, trying to remove a couple of roaches on the left-hand side of the map as well, and really trying to keep track right now of where that Terran army is located. Now, I'm pretty sure, yeah, last of the Swarm House did indeed end up falling, which I actually think is a correct decision at this point, because you don't quite want to be maxed out on Swarm House and, like, inefficient supply units at this point in the game anymore. But I wonder exactly what the Zerg is going to try and do. I mean, Swarm House, of course, did do a pretty good job right here. Beautiful yanks once again, really trying to, once again, pick off a couple of these siege tanks at a time. Beautiful yank on that Thor, trying to kill that unit as well. And at the same time, while these brutes are not quite engaging just yet, a couple of roaches made their way right here on the left-hand side of the map too. Planetary Fortress currently under a blinding cloud as well, but of course with this many SCVs, SpeCIaL is going to be able to repair that one for days. And even though it's not dealing any damage while the blinding cloud is up, I don't think he's going to be in a whole lot of trouble here just yet. And you can see SpeCIaL is climbing up in that supply count, and more importantly, he's getting himself the first of the Ravens. And I think that this is the best decision that he's made so far. I mean, while he's been doing a great job right now at defending, he's also moving out with these little hit squads of army, which is actually very interesting. I've not seen a whole lot of Terran players do that, because this is of course an army that can easily be cleaned up, but if Bly plays as aggressive as he has been, most of the Zerg army will more often than not be across the map, and this is going to be one of those forces that can move in right when he recognizes exactly where the Zerg force is located, and it's going to be capable of cleaning up an army just fine. So look at that, right? Broodlords get scanned right here. These units are getting in position. I think he's planning on moving in as soon as he realizes what is going on. Now, a couple of these Hellbats, however, have made their way here to the right-hand side of the map as well. They do deal bonus damage to light units, such as indeed these Hydras, and I think that is actually maybe a little bit of an issue. Look at the amount of workers actually going down right here. At the same time, the Terran player is going to push in here on the left-hand side of the map as well, going after the mineral lines here on both sides, and so many workers actually do end up falling. What a beautiful move here by SpeCIaL, evening up those supply counts absolutely brilliantly. And while he does sacrifice, you know, a bunch of that Terran Mech here, he kills so many workers, and once again, he's buying himself time. He's building up that maxed out force, right? And he knows as well that it's gonna be all about the mech, you know, air units very shortly. So many Ravens are currently in production. It's 2-in-1s, right? But they're expensive. They are a lot of gas each, and I mean, so far SpeCIaL has done a brilliant job here at macroing out more and more of these units. The only thing I'm a little worried for right now is the fact that SpeCIaL is running out of mineral patches. I mean, you don't need a lot of, you know, mineral income when you are indeed playing mech, but he's been throwing away a lot of units just to try and buy himself more time, and while he's been doing that very efficiently, he is gonna need more income here very shortly, and I would love to see him secure maybe this base right over here, or maybe the one here on the left-hand side, just to continue, like, macroing up. Now, of course, there are going to be a lot of Ravens available, and this is going to be interesting. This is going to be crucial. Beautiful parasitic bombs going down right now by Bly, not waiting to engage with the main army, really just trying to do as much damage here as he can, using those Vipers once again to yank as many of those units backwards, and he managed to clean up at least some of that Terran air army. I think this is actually the best move as well for Bly. I mean, he knows it too, right? He knows that 23 minutes into the game, these bases are going to look extremely skinny, and he knows that, you know, roughly 10 to 12-ish minutes into the game, the main natural and third base of the Terran player will indeed start mining out. I mean, look at this. Even the fourth base has barely got any income right now, and SpeCIaL will have to make a move here if he plans on staying in this game for any longer. I love actually the way that Bly is approaching this. I mean, I'm always worried for Terran maxing out, but he's been doing an impeccable job at just simply keeping this Terran army contained. Now let's look at the creep threat as well. I mean, that creep threat is really what is allowing him to defend against all of this aggression much more effectively, replacing the Hydras that were previously defending the bases as well with roaches, so they're going to be able to defend against these Hellbat and Hellion run-bys a little bit more efficiently here. But look at this, like, he's just simply trying to pick off a couple of units here and there, and I mean, while he doesn't really have a strong army to deal with a maxed out Terran force, if the Terran never maxes out, I mean, that's going to be a great position for him to be in. Now, Terran did indeed secure the base right here on the right-hand side here of the map as well, like the right-hand side here of that natural. I think this must have been the old main base that he floated over to start mining from this one here for another little while longer, but I mean, SpeCIaL, once again, he's building up that force, right? And this is starting to be a really good game. It's hard to say who is actually ahead here. I would still give the advantage right now to Bly, right? But we all know that a couple of minutes from now, if Terran manages to max out, this could be a lot of issue. Here we go. First massive engagement between the air units as well as all of those mech units from the Terran player. And indeed, you know, those Hunter-Seeker missiles, they are dealing the damage. And the thing is, of course, as long as SpeCIaL doesn't lose these units, he's going to be in a pretty great position. PDD Hunter-Seeker missiles, as well as, of course, the auto turrets, will allow the Terran to just simply, you know, if they manage to max out on Ravens alone, that's going to be more than enough to try and deal with this. And while he's going to need more and more air support to try and, you know, slow down the Zerg's advancement, that engagement right there was most definitely in favor of SpeCIaL, because really all he lost right there was just a bunch of missile turrets and, of course, some energy on the units that he's got. I mean, he may have lost a Viking or two, but that's about it. Of course, a couple of those Ravens got yanked as well, and really, this is going to be interesting. We see like an energy-based army versus an energy-based army. Bly is indeed gonna make a couple of these buildings and then cancel them, so he can go up to 205 supply right there. But still, I mean, this is gonna be Vipers versus Ravens. And that is a weird composition. Parasitic Bomb, extremely good. The yanking ability, extremely valuable as well. Against the PDD, the Hunter-Seeker missiles, and of course the Micro from the Zerg's point of view. And while Roaches and Hellbats are skirmishing right here in the bottom left corner of the map, I think that this game will probably be decided on the Micro of both of these players. Now, two Ravens, once again, in production here at any given moment. They're gonna slowly start maxing out on as many of these, you know, air units as he can. But look at the amount of bank here that Bly has already got. He's up to 4,000 minerals and nearly 1,000 gas as well. He's going to be able to replace this maxed out Zerg force relatively easily, right? And I mean, at this point, Zerg doesn't even have that much on the ground anymore. I mean, there's a bunch of Hydras out, right? But the majority of it is really like based around the Brute Lords, the Corruptors, as well as the Vipers. And while there are going to be always some Hydras and Roaches here ready to do some counterattack damage, I wouldn't be surprised here if Bly is looking to max out here on as many of these air units as he possibly can. The SpeCIaL trying to secure another base right here in the top right corner of the map, right actually next to where the Zerg is mining as well. So this could be a potential point of tension right here, but at the same time, the majority of the Broodlord army here has arrived on the left-hand side of the map, and they're going to go after that fourth base. And while it's not mining anymore, it is going to open up the potential here for attacks onto the production tab right here of where SpeCIaL is currently producing the majority of his mech-based composition. And there are a lot of Broodlords actually. I wonder if that's maybe not even a little bit too many. Of course, with some proper Hunter-Seeker missiles, that is going to be very, very scary. Parasitic Bomb, though, dealing a lot of damage. There are beautiful splits here by SpeCIaL, not really allowing it to deal all too much damage. But we all know, if Terran is not paying attention for just a split second, this entire army will end up falling to Parasitic Bombs in just a matter of... hold up. Same can be said right here for the Hunter-Seeker missiles. Ooh, beautiful splits there on those Vipers, but those Brute Lords most definitely took the majority of the damage, and this is what I'm talking about, right? SpeCIaL is getting to a point where he's at 150 supply, he's producing more and more of his units, and he's also just simply getting a force that Zerg is gonna have a very tough time with once it indeed maxes out. And while Bly has been valiantly trying to keep his Terran opponent at a, army deficit, we see this beautiful skirmish between both players. SpeCIaL has taken a lot of damage, but he's also prevented much, much more of it. And while a weaker Terran player would have already crumbled under the pressure at this point in time, Bly, I mean, he's keeping up the pressure, but he does have an army here that can deal with this. But generally speaking, if I can be totally honest, I mean, a maxed out Zerg army is going to be a very tricky thing to try and beat a maxed out Terran mech army with. And we see it right now as well in the form of Zerglings. I mean, Bly knows it. He's going to have to once again try and get on top of all of this production here from that Terran player. Do as much damage here as he can with the little, amounts of, army that he can get, right? I mean, he's currently up to 6,000 minerals. He needs to spend them one way or another. While he can't fight on planetary fortresses, if he can get on top of the production and slow it down just a little bit, maybe even force the Terran player to go all in right now, that would be a worthwhile job for these Zerglings already. And while while they do get cleaned up, there are infinite amounts of minerals available at this point in time, pretty much for the Zerg player. He's got such a good amount of upgrades here. It's gonna allow him to like continue onwards with these compositions right here as well, and just the continued run bys is at the very least gonna force Special to leave some units behind once he inevitably moves across the map. Of course, though, this is all gonna come down to micro here as well from the Terran player, right? He cannot misposition his army, he cannot miscontrol his siege tanks, and he most definitely cannot be caught off guard while the rest of his army, or the majority of his army, is going to be unsieged. The same can be said, however, for Bly. I mean, Bly is basing his unit composition around energy-based units right now as well. He recognizes this situation, he realizes that this is not gonna end anytime soon just yet, and if you build your army around, you know, majority, like at least the majority of it, right, around energy-based units, such as, for example, the Infestor, such as the Viper, such as the Queen, you know, some, like a lot of these, like, energy-based units, you're gonna be able to just simply regenerate that mana, and you're gonna be capable of continuing onwards with the engagements as long as you micro it properly. But once again, it comes down to the micro, and controlling, you know, several spellcasters on both sides of this engagement, that is inevitably gonna come here at some point, is gonna be extremely difficult. And really, for like the first time in his game, Special has secured himself the supply lead. It's 194 supply versus 172, and yes, Zerg can easily max out here, but Special, for the first time, is looking to get aggressive. Once again, using a small chunk of his army right here to fight on the left-hand side of the map as well. He's slowly starting to move onwards right now to that base in the top right corner of the map for Zerg, and this is actually, you know, one of the, you know, few mining bases right now for the Zerg player. This is actually a very important one. While there is still mining going on right here in the bottom left corner as well, while another hatchery has been secured, this map, like, I mean, it's essentially 3-base economy right now for a Zerg player versus 2-base for the Terran. But the thing is, of course, Terran is starting to get maxed out already, but here we go. Massive engagement going down. Special is simply splitting up against as many of these units as possible, and while a lot of the army did end up falling here on the left-hand side of the map, he's replacing the majority of it once again with the stronger versions of the units that he just lost. Gonna pull a bunch of these SCV, put them all on, or a bunch of these SCVs, and put them all on auto repair. So these units are gonna be, you know, looking shiny and fresh here in just a matter of seconds once again. And that base ended up falling here. While the Broodlords are still hanging out, right? And they're, you know, gonna have to move here eventually. That was an engagement, even though Special lost a bunch of supply, that most definitely went in favor of the Terran. And once again, I am genuinely impressed with the amount of, like, counterattacks that Special is doing right here. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do. If you're trying to play Terran Mech, right, you're trying to, like, get your army grouped up together, and these little counterattacks, I mean, considering the slowness of this Zerg army right now, right, Zerg is gonna have a hard time moving to the other side of the map to try and defend against this. Normally, Zerg is gonna be a very, very fast-paced, you know, army composition, but at this point in time, it's really, like, dominated by a lot of these Zerg air units. And while a lot of parasitic bombs will once again go down, I'm starting to be a little bit worried. Of course, there are infestors on his army as well, right? They are, of course, scanned right now as well. Fungal growth going down, only hitting a couple of these units. More and more Zerg, however, is now engaging at the top right corner of the map, and so many SCVs do end up falling. Special trying to, like, figure out if he can take that engagement, but he realized that he doesn't quite want to fight right there. A couple of the Zerglings will have to be forced backwards as well to clean up that single lone siege tank that was trying to kill that base here in the bottom left corner as well. And while one of the bases ended up falling here, it took a lot of the Zerg army with them as well. But the thing is, Special is essentially mined out. Special does not really have any income anymore. While he's been, you know, killing a lot of the Zerg army here, Bly has done a phenomenal job at containing the Terran player. And at this point, you know, he's scrambling by. Look at the amount of minerals here. There's very, very little of it. And even though, I mean, Special is got a menacing force, I think this is going to be the majority of the Terran army that we will see in this game if he does not quickly secure another base. Hunter-Seeker missiles once again going down. The Hunter-Seeker missiles will be able to make their way across as well, but beautiful splits there by the red Zerg player, really not allowing that to deal the majority of the damage that the Terran player was looking for. And while, you know, Terran is gonna try and do, you know, some moving out right now, he is getting into some very dangerous territory. I mean, he's engaging onto bases that he knows are not mining anymore. He knows that he doesn't really need to take this engagement, but he needs to do something. He needs to get another base up and running, and the thing is that this map is starting to be mined out. I mean, there's only a couple of mineral patches remaining, and they're all right here on the left-hand side of the map. Another command center now floating over to that top right corner of the map, and while Terran once again is forced to be backed up. I wonder, is SpeCIaL not just simply dried out? I mean, look at that. There's no income here, other than like these couple of extremely skinny mineral patches, and Zerg knows it as well. Zerg has been trying to bleed the Terran player dry here. Once again though, Hunter-Seeker missiles going down, the Brute Lords trying to split up to the best of their abilities. A lot of splash damage will go down. Queens trying to transfuse here to the majority of this army. Once again, Hunter-Seeker missiles going in, beautiful splits right there at the nick of time for the Zerg player, just barely not losing the majority of that army, but were they good enough? Zerg, however, does have a ton of income. He does still have a ton of resources. He can spend some of that bank to try and get a bigger force going, but still, the Terran player is gonna regenerate more and more energy, and he's gonna start up the mining once again. I mean, at this point, it's almost not even worthwhile anymore, and actually, it's really not worthwhile anymore to continue mining from this base. Maybe have a couple of workers here on the right-hand side to simply do some long-distance mining, because the majority of the income is actually gonna come off of the base right here in the bottom left corner, and SpeCIaL knows it. He's gonna start moving towards that direction as well. I think he's probably looking to, take down this base here on the left-hand side with a couple of siege tanks, but at the same time, he is forced to defend the base right here in the top right corner, which is really like his lifeline. I mean, this is not the way you want Terran Mech to really behave anymore at this point in the game. I mean, if your only mining base right now is in the top right corner, and the only Zerg's mining base is all the way in the bottom left, you gotta be extremely spread out with one of the slowest moving compositions in the entire game. But with some great scanning, he's keeping track of where this Zerg player is located, and he managed to figure out that he was indeed safe enough to go ahead and take down the base here in the bottom left corner. And while Bly does still have a little bit more mining going on here than his opponent, a lot of his drones are indeed starting to idle, and some of them are even not working at all anymore. And actually, I think that Bly he doesn't really want to mine from this base all too much longer anymore either, but since his army composition is so very slow here as well, he really can only use Hydras to properly defend against these run-bys. He's gonna really he's gonna have to max out, and I feel like he has to push into this position right here. I mean, this is the only amount of mining that's going on right now for SpeCIaL. We see some very brave Ravens trying to move forward right here, hitting those parasitic bombs and killing a bunch of these Ravens. Great move, actually, such a risky one as well, but that just actually gave a big lead. Like, that brave little move there, right? If Vikings were in a bit of a different position, that could have been the end of that for the Vipers as well. But with some very brave moves right there, the parasitic bombs dealing so much damage, I think that this may very well be one of the most crucial engagement of this entire game. Once again, Hunter-Seeker missiles going down, blowing up a ton of these Corruptors. Siege tanks are still ready to go, and there are still some hero Brute Lords here to try and deal with this. But of course, SpeCIaL has got a menacing force. Look at this army. He's going to be capable of cleaning up this base with relative ease. And I mean, a bunch of these drones ended up falling here as well. And once again, the Raven are just simply gonna sit tight and start regenerating more and more of this energy. The SCVs are getting in position once again to continue that repairing here of that army. And while, Bly got a little bit cheeky right there, and he does still have a huge amount of minerals, he's starting to run out of gas as well. He's desperately trying to continue mining here from all of these bases to the best of his abilities, but he recognizes it right now too, that this base, I mean, while it's it's got some resources here, he's predominantly getting it for the gas income right now. About 1,000 gas remaining right here at this base. But once again, the Hellions are trying to get their way towards this, I guess, left-hand side of the map, and he's gonna have to fight some Brute Lords. Do we really see some defensive Brute Lords? Is Bly really that fed up with his engagement right now? Siege tanks are moving onwards though, and SpeCIaL, I mean, he is doing a phenomenal job with the army that he's got. Really cleaning up a lot of this, but I think that actually Bly may have been fed up with his engagement, and he's using some Brute Lords defensively right now. Recognizing that, SpeCIAL's not gonna stop with all of these mech run-bys. He's just simply gonna try and sit back right there on the left-hand side of the map. And while, once again, right, there's a ton of Zerg minerals available, what are you gonna make? Are you really gonna make Zerglings at this point? I mean, auto turrets are Hunter-Seeker missile will make short work of those in just a matter of seconds, and I think he's probably better off saving his minerals to just simply get more and more static defense out here instead. Once again, parasitic bombs going down, forcing the splits right here on all of these Terran units, flying the Ravens forward to try and make sure that the friendly damage right there gets dealt off the Hunter-Seeker missiles. A very ballsy move, sacrificing the Vipers right there in favor of killing a bunch of the Ravens. But the Ravens, once again, I mean, they are being, like, they're being killed though. This is kind of risky. There was a lot of Vikings right here now on the left-hand side of the map as well, and they did manage to clean up all of those Brute Lords. At the same time, they're going to be capable of going after that base once again, and while the Vipers were sacrificed there to try and land those Hunter-Seeker missiles and deal the splash damage right there to the Ravens themselves, currently the Ravens are very low on energy, and I think that this may very well be an opportunity right now for the Zerg player to start moving onwards as well. Once again though, the Hunter-Seeker missiles doing a lot of damage, transfuses going down immediately though, and this is going to be a crucial engagement here as well, because once again, the majority of the Terran army now is caught on the left-hand side of the map. Zerg has finally decided that he wants to start adding on more and more Zerglings. I would actually love to see some more Queens coming out of this engagement right now, but this is going to be a very important fight, because the Zerg player is trying to close out the game right here, right now. The question is, does he have enough? There's a planetary fortress, of course, that's dealing an awful lot of damage. It's currently not being repaired because Special needs every single mineral that he can find right now. He can really not afford to do this. But at the same time, the Vikings are now returning from their duty of killing the base on the left-hand side of the map. And, I mean, they're going to be... Ooh, fungal growth going down right there. Just barely missing the majority of that bowl. But they're going to try and shoo away all of these Brute Lords. And I think that this is going to come down to a mined-out map. I mean, really, like, the only base that's still got minerals, right? And I think that we're going to skirmish for this one here in just a second. The only base that's still got minerals right here is on the left-hand side of it. And I think that actually the Zerglings should just go in for the counterattack right now. But the thing is there going to be enough here for Bly to try and stop this, right? I mean, a lot of SCVs are now also joining this engagement, and, you know, that's never a great sign here for a Terran player. It just simply means that he's run out of mineral patches. He's got more than enough mules to drop in every single one of these bases if he needs to continue mining with that. But look at that. That base is going to run very dry here shortly, and the Zerglings are indeed now moving on top of all of his production, forcing Special to make a move. He's going for the right-hand side of the map. Parasitic Bomb once again going down. The majority of this Zerg army is now also located right over here. These, oh man, these Spore Crawlers are dealing so much damage as well, killing a huge chunk of all of these Terran air units. But I think that there actually may be enough Zerg. I mean, look at the amount of army supply that's currently available for the Zerg player. It's 116 versus only 32. The last of the Raven have ended up falling, and I think that just barely, Bly may have done it. I mean, sacrificing Ravens, trying to deal that splash damage off the Hunter-Seeker missiles on top of the Ravens themselves. I mean, sacrificing the Vipers to just simply fly in there was most definitely the correct choice. And while a little risky, he kept moving forward right there with the Vipers to do as much damage as he could while running out of gas himself as well. I think that he may have done it, and I think that he may have realized here as well that that was the last of the army that the Terran player has. I mean, look at this. There are going to be a bunch of siege tanks available, right? He's actually consuming his own hatchery right now, but the thing is, once Blinding Clouds and Yanks become available and these siege tanks are going to be nullified, very patient play right here, by the way, by Bly, really not like taking any unnecessary risks. I think he may actually even be disengaging. I wouldn't be even too surprised about that, but if he just simply manages to get some proper Yanks out, he's going to be in an extremely good position. There we go. Vikings being abducted into the Hydra ball, and eventually SpeCIaL says GG. What an awesome game. I mean, Bly was quite literally just bleeding the Terran player dry. I mean, he knew that he couldn't really properly engage that army, right? And he was trying to just deny as many of these Terran bases as he could. But that was an extremely high level Terran versus Zerg, and you could see that funny engagement right there between the Vipers and the Ravens. I mean, it's interesting. Both of the units, of course, are energy based, and both of them basically counter each other. It's a very close situation and a very close engagement, with Bly just simply inching ahead, playing it out brilliantly. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, of course, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank you very much so for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.